Hey, hello, and welcome. Hello to everyone who is coming in. And as you're checking in, hey, first comment there from Devin. Yeah, comment, check in, let us know where you're checking in from. And get your cues in, get your questions in, because I'll need some stuff. Hey, Todd. And thanks, Devin. Devin says, thanks for being a great person. I wish that I was a great person, but I appreciate it. Tell my wife. So log in, check in the comments, tell us where you're checking in from, and give me some questions because I need some cues for the Q&A section. So check in and do some questions, and I'm going to put a lampshade on one of these lamps I'm using. Well, if I can find it. Oh, there it is. That light is a little bit harsh, I think. There we go. See if that works a little bit. Yeah, that works a little better. All right. Yeah, we got some people coming in. That's good. Okay. So now that we're up to a decent amount of people are getting in a little quicker now that we're doing this weekly and we've done a few episodes. So, get me in your cues and we will start pretty soon here. I have a couple new ones, but this is the same ones we've been using. We'll get started on our metal church liturgy here in, well, right about now, actually. Metal church liturgy, as I do sort of an intro. Oh, I got to give you that. Intro and recap. Man, there we go. Intro recap for the week. Oh, here's a cue from Devin. Oh, and he's checking in from Ogden. And a guy from Minnesota, Todd, and someone from Grand Rapids, Michigan. All right. Oh, okay. Hey, so before I do the recap, let me write down a couple of these questions, and be able to answer them in the Q&A section later. Oh, we got someone checking in from Columbia again, Andres. Matt from Michigan. Okay. All right. So anyways, as I keep getting your questions in, and while I look over there on the questions, I'll go over our intro / recap from the last week since our last episode of Sundays with Seth. And we do Metal Church Liturgy each week, so we've got a kind of a ritual and process for this. And as we do so, I start off with this intro / recap to let you know what went on since the last episode. And I mentioned baseball last week. I was excited that baseball was back. Now I'm baseball season might be in jeopardy. There's 6 teams that have been sitting out the last few days from coronavirus cases, COVID cases. So that's a little disheartening, and it was kind of gross already. They were using a ton of rapid tests and testing facilities, and we have a shortage of those in America. So it's kind of gross they're hogging that kind of stuff when sometimes there's someone who probably has COVID who can't get tested because of the shortage. So I was a little uncomfortable with it already, but now it's like kind of even more so. Oh, greetings from India, from Arun. So that's cool. And John from Portland and Daniel from Brazil. Nice to see all you guys. So since then, yeah, baseball season is kind of in jeopardy. I have some neck pain, pretty bad up here. It's like the very bottom of the neck. I was on the trampoline with my 2 sons, and I went to bounce on my back, which I've done before, and then after the one bounce on the back, I kind of lost my balance and landed on here, and it was enough weight that it kind of messed me up. So it got okay the first day, or the second and third day, and I must have slept on it wrong, because it's been really rough today. So I'm using some CBD oil, and I took some ibuprofen, but it's still pretty rough. Even got my wife to massage it a little bit, and my son to massage it, but it didn't help a whole lot. So we had church this morning. I'm still wearing the clergy collar. We did drive-in worship again. It was our fourth Sunday of drive-in worship, and I preached today. It was we trade off preaching every other week, so this was my turn to preach, and it was a lot of fun. I got to talk about the process through which Jesus went in the feeding of the 5,000 story, using Mother Teresa's quote statement that goes through a whole progression of the fruit of silence is prayer, the fruit of prayer is faith, the fruit of faith is love, the fruit of love is justice through service, and the fruit of justice through service is peace. So I went through that process from that text in the Gospel of Matthew. And I keep wearing this clergy collar, partly because it's our tradition, but also there's some symbology for it, just like everything in liturgy. This is a bit of white in a sea of black, it's symbolic of a light in a sea of darkness. And so I wear all black, except for that one little white spot all the time, which in the summer outdoors gets hot. But that's okay. I like wearing black. Cornel West always wears black because he says he's ready for a funeral. And Johnny Cash was known as the man in black. So I'm okay with that. So that's what's been going on. That is sort of the intro / recap. Again, get your questions in. I've got a couple in there, but I would love a couple more. So if you just checked in, give me some questions to do during Q&A. So now we're to the next part of Middle Church Liturgy, which is Around the Horn. And during Around the Horn, I go around sort of checking in on various different groups. And I don't have a ton of news from a lot of different things. But I do know that Daniel plays in two different bands, Fit for a King and Phineas. And I did see something just like the last couple days where Phineas is writing a new album. And they're going to release it next year, I think. So check out that news. I think there's a video of him playing like a riff on guitar. And sounds pretty cool. So make sure you check that out. And if you're a fan of Phineas or music like that, heavy music, then apprise yourself of that news. Hi, Cruz from Texas. You checking in? So yeah, I've had some conversations with various band members, but nothing groundbreaking or necessarily new to report. So I still haven't heard a name that I like for my guitar. So if you have a name suggestion for the guitar, I'm still fielding suggestions for that. And that is Around the Horn. So we move on to the third part of Metal Liturgy, which is Merch of the Week. And in Merch of the Week, I show you a different piece of merchandise that BTA has available. You can either email us or send us a Facebook message, or you can get it on our Etsy store. And so last week I did that little collector's item sampler thing. This is Merch of the Week this week is the Terminate Damnation artwork shirt. So a lot of people are big fans of Terminate Damnation. First album since we're celebrating the 15th anniversary. We have some of these shirts left from small all the way up to XXL. If you're larger than XXL, we have some other shirts that are available in that size, but in this shirt only goes up to XXL, and it's a big 7-color print, so it's kind of expensive to do. And speaking of the colors, I wanted to show you something interesting. We got one medium. We got one medium where the colors are off. So there's white up here. See, the Becoming the Archetype at the top is not gold, but instead white. And the same thing with at the bottom, Terminate Damnation is in white. And so it's kind of a color misprint, which I think is kind of neat. It's just one shirt in the mix of the whole batch. So I haven't sold that separately, but it kind of is neat. And it's almost like I used to be a baseball card collector. And whenever you get an error print, it's like, kind of a special thing. So I always thought, well, this is pretty cool. I'll hold on to this in case anybody just really wants a a unique one-off misprint. So if you're interested in that, send us a Facebook message or an email. It's a size medium is what the size of that different colored print is. So if you wear a medium and you want a Terminate Damnation shirt that's one of a kind, go ahead and send us a message or an email about that. And so I'm looking in at different people checking in, and seeing all kinds of good stuff. The shredder. Oh, Taylor, you'll see the guitar later on during Riff of the Week. So we'll check that out here in a little bit. But there's the TD artwork shirt. That is merch of the week, and I think that I think that's pretty good. We did a limited run. We always have to do limited runs because we have to actually pay Dan Seagrave, who is the guy who painted the album art for that. We have to pay him every time we print. So I'll do like a short run, say of 50 or 100 shirts, and we have to pay him a fee every time. So we don't do it very often, so that's why they're limited edition. We only got certain sizes, and they run out. So that's merch of the week. Next up in Metal Church Liturgy is what I've been telling you about to get your Q's in for. So Q&A. You can't see the and, can you? You never can see the and. Anyway, Q&A. And you've been getting some of those questions in, so let's launch into different questions that people have submitted. One that I saw that I could address is what kind of amps, pedals, gear did we use? And I'll tell you that this is always an interesting conversation because, dudes in bands play all kinds of different stuff, and they usually have reasons for why they do, and they have preferences and all that. John and Alex and Daniel, our 3 different lead guitarists over time, all had different preferences on what they used, but I will say that mine was always very simple. When the question asked about pedals, I didn't use pedals. We didn't use pedals very much. I had literally a tuner, so I could tune between songs if I needed to, and usually a noise suppressor because it's kind of loud. That's it. No effects pedals at all. I would plug right into a 5150. At different times I had a 5150 and other times I had a 5152 made by Peavey, and it's just got great distortion for what we do. 2 channels, so if you needed a foot switch to switch to clean, you could do that. And we did that a little bit early on, but not very much. I didn't have to use the foot switch very much. Sorry, David, that the merch of the week is not available in triple XL. I do a double XL, but I got triple XL on other shirts, but not in that one. So I never used pedals, but the amp for me was always a 5150, and that was usually what other people used, but there were different ones. Like Alex built his own amps, so he used one that he built, which is pretty cool. And for all I know, he might still make amps. And if you want to have a custom-made amplifier, guitar amp, by the lead guitarist for BTA from 2006 to 2008, then you could probably contact him on Facebook or email or whatever and get an amp made, especially if you have particular instructions or critiques on exactly what you want. But for the rest of the gear, I used to play Jackson. John and I played Jackson early on, and then we got sponsored by ESP. And so we would get 2 or 3 guitars a year free from ESP. We were able to get the LTD ones for free, so we'd do that. And I'd usually play, the sort of the Les Paul looking one usually. They sponsor Metallica, so they had some Metallica ones. So I think I got the James Hetfield Truckster one at one point. But I'd occasionally get some of the ones. In fact, this is what this is. So what you're about to see is an LTD, but this one's black with abalone around the edges and in the fretboard inlays on the fretboard. I had a matte black one for a while. I don't know. I always liked when we played Jackson. I liked those covered pickups, those active EMG pickups, and with the reverse headstock. That was my favorite way to go. If you see videos of us, we're almost certainly playing LTDs. So that was a lot of fun. So that's my gear. If you want to know more about geek out gear stuff, you'd have to talk to John or Alex or Daniel. But both Jason and I just did not use a lot. Basic cab that worked, head that sounded good, plugged the guitar in, tuned, ready to go. That's all you needed. And so, that's pretty easy. Another question I got was personal favorite album of any genre ever. That's really hard to say because there's just different genres that, different albums that are good for different times. So, it's easy to say something by the Beatles. For instance, I'm a big Beatles fan. Something like Abbey Road or something that's a lot of fun. But then, even more modern, there's albums I think of as like a 10 out of 10. I don't see any problem with them. As far as I'm concerned, they're perfect. I wouldn't change anything about them if I could. Jimmy Eat World, Bleed American's really good in that way. Beck has, I would say, even 2 albums, Sea Change and Morning Phase are kind of like that. And there's just a lot of different albums like that. You can go on and on. I have always really liked Opeth's twin pairing of Deliverance and Damnation. There's plenty of albums you could do like that. Oh, I got another cue coming in here. Do you have friends like you who were in the scene earlier but are currently serving in the church at a level similar to you? Do you like anything at all about the Russian/Greek Orthodoxy traditions? Good question. I do. I actually wrote one of my main seminary papers on the relationship and the conversation between Martin Luther. So I'm a Lutheran pastor, but I didn't go to Lutheran seminary. I went to George Fox Seminary, which is now Portland Seminary. So I was in Portland pretty regularly to do classes, and it's interdenominational. It's Quaker roots. Used to be a Quaker seminary, but now it's interdenominational. So some of my professors were Lutheran, and some were from other traditions. But one of my big main papers was about people don't talk much about the Protestant Reformation happening in the West, but then also the East maintaining things, and the conversation that happened between Martin Luther and some of the patriarchs of the Eastern Church. And I think it was sort of one of those, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So as Luther's pushing back against the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church is fighting with him about things, power and theology and finances and everything else, Luther kind of says, well, there's all these churches over in the East, not that far from me actually, who have not been part of the Roman Catholic tradition for, at that point, several hundred years. So he reaches out and has conversations. Ultimately, the conversations kind of fizzled and didn't go much of anywhere, but I've always had a lot of respect for the Eastern Church and the fact that they have maintained practices and their liturgy for nearly 2,000 years now, unchanged, basically. I've got my critiques of the Eastern Church, just like the Western Church. There's a lot of times that I feel like they're intertwined with power a little bit too much, like in the Russian Orthodox Church. And there's some ways in which they have failed to adapt, and they probably should have. But I appreciate their liturgy. I appreciate their sanctuaries and the way they're laid out with the huge vaulted ceilings, almost like when you're in a sanctuary. It's a connection between heaven and earth. And that's why you have those icons all around and the presence of saints who have gone before, the great cloud of witnesses. And I have a lot of appreciation for their theology and liturgy and what they do. So that's Q&As for this week. And I appreciate you getting your Q's in. I always take questions throughout the week too, so you don't have to just submit them live online. You can email or send us a Facebook message or leave a comment. And so now I'm going to do a section that's new. This is a new section to our liturgy. Liturgy's like that. It's a little bit bendable. It's not completely rigid. So we're going to do Lyric of the Week. So we talked about this last week where someone said, would you dive into maybe some lyrics and explore those? So I said, sure. So I don't mind getting into that a little bit. I'll do one song at a time. I'm not going to be able to do as much as speak as deeply about things as Jason would be able to, since Jason wrote most of the lyrics. But I will speak about a song that's on, again, 15th anniversary of Terminate Damnation, so a song off Terminate Damnation. And this one is the last track on the album, which has been really fun for me to revisit recently, to listen to and then to speak about the lyrics, and it'll be our riff of the week that's coming up. But the trivial paroxysm, actually, uh, just the title alone is actually kind of neat. And um, Jason was really good at coming up with words that kind of were unusual and drew out some aspects of philosophy or theology that were maybe not mainstream, not very well known. So, paroxysm means a sudden attack or violent expression or a sort of spasm almost. And so, trivial, obviously being like not important, trivial paroxysm, he's referring to death and sort of like why is it that we feel like it's such a big deal? Death. It's ultimately awfully trivial, and so the lyrics are sort of about death. And it's not very long. He does some decent amount of repetition in various riffs. But each breath feels like my last, but that won't stop me. I've seen the way it ends. I won't give up. Carry on till then. And though I'm incapable of sustaining myself even for a moment, I will outlive time. Carry on. And as I had played this riff earlier and listened to the song earlier this week, I started thinking about some things to do um, with death, because as a pastor, I do a lot of work with death and dying. Oh, thanks John for checking in from South Africa. And it strikes me that there are some experiences and aspects of human existence which cause a lot of deep pain. That's a lot of what you do. So as part of my ordination, one of the things that was required. Clint says, "Am I really a pastor?" Yes, I'm really a pastor. I'm ordained in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And part of that, the ELCA has pretty high standards for what you have to do to be ordained. It's not just 4 years of seminary after you've already gotten your 4-year college degree, and it's not just pastoral internship for a year, and psych eval, psychology evaluation, and some other things. But one big part of it is a unit of CPE, which is clinical pastoral education, basically chaplaincy. And so I did a unit of CPE, and what you do, I worked in a hospice location, where it's basically understood that the patients are approaching death. The understanding is we're not going to fight it. We're not looking for fighting for some kind of cure or reversal. We are accepting that this person will die soon, and we're trying to make them as comfortable as possible. And in that work, which I've thought about a lot since I did that in 2017, you find that there's a lot of pain that surrounds the death and dying process for almost everybody. And that pain is awfully difficult to describe or even understand. When you talk about pain, most people talk about physical pain, but there's also emotional pain, there's spiritual pain, and and you wonder why some people have such a difficult time communicating that and finding language for it. It seems like there are some experiences and aspects of this human existence which cause deep pain, and they're difficult to describe, I think even difficult to understand, and really nearly impossible to communicate. And when you walk beside people who are approaching death, it's often you find that they have difficulty finding the language to even come close to speaking to that pain, to themselves, much less to anybody else. And so I'm starting to understand some of that more as I go through and I walk with members of the church who know that they're going to die soon, and minister to their family as well as to those people themselves. And there seems to be almost always some sort of pain present at death, whether that's physical pain on behalf of the person who's dying, maybe they have some kind of bodily pain, or whether there's emotional pain that the person who's dying has, or emotional, deep spiritual pain by someone related to the person who's dying, regrets, or a feeling of loss, or trauma that they experienced in their relationship with that person. And so there's always this sort of pain that you have to navigate in these situations. And you have to do a lot of listening and just be present and hear what's going on. Um, and I'm I think that there's an awful lot of people that have that experience, and I think it's maybe even a universal human experience, that it's difficult to find the language to understand or communicate that pain, whatever pain that is. And I think that's part of what music can be. Music can be, for some people, a language that speaks when we do not have the words. And so when I think about the Trivial Paroxysm and the lyrics to that song and about death in general, I think about how valuable music has been for humans throughout all time, to be able to process what happened to them in the past and what's happening to them now, and their anxieties, their fears about the future. Language is awfully limited, and so often we have to find ways to express things that we can't through language. So I find value in what Jason wrote, but of course he could probably speak more to this, and it's a pretty limited amount of lyrics, but just that diving into thoughts of death, and whether I like the title of the song, "The Trivial Paroxysm," but I think I wouldn't use that as a term anymore for death and dying. Regardless of what you believe about what happens after death, if anything, um, it's a monumental event. No matter what we are embodied creatures, going back to last week's discussion about um, artificial immortality, or the beast, and about the nature of humanity. We are embodied. And even if you have a Gnostic view of sort of our spirit is caged in a body and then it'll be released at death, that's probably the most hopeful and optimistic view of death. And even then, I think there's trauma around bodily death. But obviously, there's all kinds of other views like that. So anyway, I just want to let you know that that's my thought on that lyric of the week, and each week we'll have a lyric of the week, and I'll choose a different song to dive into. I want to let you know that my computer just said, sorry, we're having trouble playing this video. I don't know why that is. It happened a couple weeks ago, and I have no idea why. So comment if you can still see me and hear me just fine, just so I can know that you are still seeing and hearing okay, and I'll keep going. So that's lyric of the week. Next up, if you can still see me, is riff of the week. And as I do each week, I play a riff. So far, I've done it all on guitar. I'm actually going to try to do something on keyboard. Thanks, Devin, for letting me know you can still see and hear me. The riff of the week, each week, I choose a different song to play, kind of talk through playing it and how it was written a little bit, and what's going on. And it's going to be a little weird since I can't see what you're seeing, but I think I can do the guitar fine. I was going to do a keyboard thing. I'm going to have to think about the logistics of that now with, I think I can do it. But I'll have to sort through this. So, we talked about the lyrics from Trivial Paroxysm. So, I wanted to play that opening riff for you, speak a little bit about that. So let me know, can you see this okay? I'm pretty sure you can hear it just fine, but let me know if you can see both what this hand's playing and what this hand's, left and right hand, both. But I really like that opening riff on Trivial Paroxysm, so I wanted to play that on guitar for you and talk through that briefly before I move to that piano section. So, okay. So, that opening riff on Trivial Paroxysm, John wrote it. John wrote the song, and he's kind of a bluesy guitarist, which is kind of neat. And in the blues scale, you've got that 4 and then raised 4 and then 5 sort of thing. And so he works that into this riff, which is still a metal riff, but he's got this, if you're in C, so I'm in drop C, And when you do that riff, you got 1, 2, flat third, 4, but then in the blues riff you go raised 4 and then 5, okay, and then 6, 7, and then back to the tonic again. So he does, he uses that with, oh, wait, shoot. Yeah, so open, so 1, in the scale 1, 5, 6, 7, 6, which is on the frets, open, 7, 8, 10, 8. And then he walks up that 4, raised 4, 5. So. And then, which in the key of C minor would be 4, 3, 2, and that's 10, 8, 7 on the frets on that second string. So. And then he also switches times between the, so during the opening section of the riff, it's palm muted, and he does this squeal, pinch harmonic, which I'm not great at doing on the fly, but he does it. It's like a passing note, and it's in 7. So you go. And then, after that cycle through of 7, then it opens up with not palm muting and playing straight, and it switches to straight time, so there's like more time for the pinch harmonic. So. Okay, so that's the riff. I like the bluesy part of the riff, and I like the switch back between 7/8 and 8/8 or 4/4 between the palm muted and the open style of playing that. And then of course there's that transition riff where he just plays on, hammers home that 4, raised 4 and 5. Okay, and that leads into the transition, which is the clean, kind of soft part of that riff. So I like that riff a lot. And then he goes to the clean, soft part of that song, and that's something I got to write on the song. And I'm going to, it's going to be awfully difficult, but I'm going to move this computer in an odd way over here. I'm going to put, I don't know if this will work or not, actually. We'll try. Let me know if you can kind of see. I'm going to turn on some other lights. See if you can see this okay. That's my keyboard. I had a different way to do this when I could see things, but I don't know if you can see this very well or not. If you can see this, let me know. I'm going to try to navigate a little bit over here. Okay. So this now, we're in D minor. And what I do here is you have this progression of D to C. So D minor is the chord, triad. This is, by the way, my microchord. I used to play this mostly with anchors, but used it a little bit with Becoming the Archetype. Here is the microphone for the vocoder, and I drilled holes in the sides to attach a white strap, which I'm obviously not using now, so I attached the white strap and had it around, and I painted the keys the opposite colors. So that's what I'm using. I'm just playing through an amp here with thing. And I'm trying to get it to sound okay, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, so let me make sure you guys can see this, all right? Okay. Oh, a little down. Can you see that better now? Okay. I know this is really weird, especially since I can't see what you're seeing. So you got the D minor chord, and then C major, and then A minor, and then B flat major. So that's what you're playing in the left hand. And while that's playing, you're kind of outlining those notes with the right hand over here. And then, okay, so you got the D minor, and then you got the C minor, C4, C, G, F, and then A, E, F, and then you're back to C. So you got that whole progression. You do that 4 times as you go through the opening section. Okay, so you do that 4 times, then you got the piano solo. And so I'm going to switch up an octave here, and I'm going to try to do this solo, but it is awfully weird trying to play. Maybe this will work better. Maybe you can see a little bit better now. Okay. So that solo on the piano goes like this. And then you go down to A minor. And then you got a D minor. And then C major. And then A minor. And then B flat. Okay. So. Start over again like that, and then this time you go up, and you got F down here, and then C down at the bottom, and then a B flat, and then you repeat that opening thing again 4 times. I need a D up there on the top. Okay, so that's how you play that piano part, which I don't know if you play piano or not, but if you do play piano, now you've got a piano riff that's included in there. And I thought there may be some people out there who do play piano and don't play guitar, so they might appreciate something like that. Okay. Yeah, I did paint the keys negative, reverse the black and white. So comment, let me know if you can now see me better as I'm sitting down now. Hopefully you can see me okay. Let me know how things are going. I can't see it all, like how many people are in and what's going on. And if you can see me right, we'll move to the next part of our Metal Church Liturgy. We are doing, as always, Metal Church Liturgy here on Sundays with Seth, episode 4. We'll move to that last thing. I'm not seeing any comments. Oh, by the way, thanks for letting me know to move the thing down, David. Okay, looking good. Okay, good. Okay, so the last part of Metal Church Liturgy is Story of the Week. And this is sort of the benediction, I guess, in a sense, almost like a bedtime story, ending of the whole thing. And I tell a story from BTA tours or recording or whatever. This one is a little bit of a weird story about group of people. So take it for whatever you will. If you like this band, whatever. I guess no hard feelings at this point because it's been so long. But we played a bunch of festivals almost every year. Loved them. And one of the best festivals we played was Sunshine Fest up in Minnesota. So every year we go up there and play in the summer. And a lot of fun, good bands, good stages, good hospitality for the bands. And what they had for the hospitality are like these big tents, and like only the band members and personnel could get in there to eat and hang out together and stuff. And we had badges and stuff that would let us in. And so you sit in there, and occasionally you'd see another band. So, you're not touring with a lot of these groups, and so you see other people eating, and you say, oh, hey, I'll connect with that band or that group, whatever, and it's usually really good. There was one year that even a band that wasn't even necessarily the same genre, Daniel Gailey, connected with John Cooper from Skillet, and he was hanging out there, and they just hit it off and walked around and hung out, watched bands together for a little while, and it was pretty cool. And there was another time Daniel connected with, at a different festival, with Head from used to be in Korn, then had his own thing. And so, usually a really good time. Well, there was one time where I was sitting there in the food tent with us and some dudes from a couple other bands that we were hanging out with at the time and we're good friends with. And we're eating, and I noticed that like 2 or 3 tables down, Devil Wears Prada guys had come in. And they had just sat down. I think it was the whole band and like some kind of tour person with them, an older dude with a cowboy hat and stuff. So they're sitting there at the table. They sat down, and I guess they're not necessarily getting anything to eat, but I can recognize them. And so I turned to a couple of our band members, and I'm like, "Hey, I think that's Devil Wears Prada, and I don't think I've ever like met them in person. I should probably go just say hi, and because we're playing in front of them tonight, So later tonight we're playing at 8 or whatever, and they're playing at 9, or we're playing at 9, they're playing at 10. We're going on right before them. So I introduced myself, let them know we're playing before them, and then just so make that introduction. And I said, "You guys want to go with me?" Because I think at that time, Bradley Riggs was playing bass for us, and Abishai was playing drums for us. They were filling in. That must have been 2011. So this must have been summer 2011. So I turned to them like, "Hey, you guys want to go?" And they're like, "No, I'm not going." I turned to a couple of the other guys from some of the other bands that we're sitting with. I'm like, "Hey, you guys want to go with me to introduce ourselves to the Devil Wears Prada?" And they're like, "No way, man, not doing it." I was like, "All right, what's the worst that could happen? Just go say hi, So I get up and I walk down that couple tables, and they're like these long plastic folding tables that are set up in this tent. So I get to the end of the table, and they're like at the other end. So I start walking down the aisle, like between the chairs that are set up there for each table, and get a couple steps in, and I was like, "Hi guys," and they look at me, and I'm like, "Hi, my name's Seth, and I play in the band Becoming the Archetype, and I just wanted to introduce myself and just let you know we're playing before you tonight. We're excited to be here again. Glad to be playing in front of you guys, and just figured I'd say hi and introduce myself." Really brief like that. And they all looked at me, and no one said a single word. And the vocalist, Mike, kind of like nodded his head, shades on, nodded his head, and every single one of them stood up and walked out the other end of the table and left the tent. Not a single word spoken. And I look back at like the rest of my band and the other bands that we were hanging out with, and I'm like, and they had gathered all these people around to watch. I guess they knew maybe there's a reputation there or something, but they kind of knew what was going to happen, I think. So they gathered all these people around, and they start laughing at me as if like, "We told you, man, that's what's going to happen." I was like, "All right." So I walk back over to our table, and I finish my meal. And that has to easily, I think, be one of the worst experiences I ever had with another band. Or just, maybe not even worst, just the most odd. And I get, at least for me, the most unexpected. So that's what happened. So I come back and I sit down, finish my meal, and then we have other good stories of meeting all kinds of other bands and stuff. So festivals are always fun, and occasionally had that really weird story, bizarre story like that. So that is this week's story of the week, and that is the end of Metal Church Liturgy for this week. So thanks for joining in to episode 4 of Sundays with Seth, and I will see you guys next week. Same time, same channel. Take care, guys.